So good morning each and everyone. My name is Shania Ebonia and I am going to report about the NCBTS or the National Competency-Based Teacher Standards. So let's start with NCBTS. What is NCBTS? The NCBTS is an integrated theoretical framework that defines the different dimensions of effective teaching, where effective teaching means being able to help all types of students learn the different learning goals in curriculum. So the NCBTS defines as the desired practice of effective teaching. So the NCBTS sets performance indicators classified in appropriate domains and strands that guide teachers' professional development. So why do we need the NCBTS? The NCBTS provides a single framework that shall define effective teaching in all aspects of a teacher's professional life and all phases of teacher development. The single framework should also provide a better guide for all teacher development programs and projects from the school level up to the national level. So the NCBTS defines effective teaching as being able to help all types of students learn the different goals in the curriculum. So who should use the NCBTS? Teacher education institutions shall use the NCBTS to design and implement effective pre-service teacher education curricula. The PRC shall refer the NCBTS in designing the licensure exam for teachers. Award-giving bodies shall refer to the NCBTS in defining their criteria for outstanding teachers. The DepEd shall use the NCBTS in formulating its hiring, promotion, supervision, and other policies related to the teaching profession. So the most important, individual teachers in all the public elementary and high schools in all over the country shall use the NCBTS for their professional development activities. So how should teachers use the NCBTS? So teachers can use the NCBTS in many ways. Use NCBTS as a guide to reflect on their current teaching practices. They use NCBTS as a framework for creating new teaching practices. They use the NCBTS as a guidepost for planning for professional development goals. They use the NCBTS as a common language for discussing teaching practices with other teachers. So what are the 7 domains of NCBTS? There are 7 domains of NCBTS to be included in preparing course syllabus. So what are these 7 domains? The 7 domains are social regard for learning, learning environment, diversity of learners, curriculum, planning, assessing and reporting, community linkages, and the personal growth and development. So let's start with the domain 1, the social regard for learning. Learning is regarded as social activity in school. Learners are the people in school society who are taught in all walks of life, be it academic, social, spiritual, moral, and many others, in order to mold them to become good citizens of the country. Cultural musical contest is a social activity in school wherein learners are trained to discover their potentials and talents. They are brought to different places, for example, the educational tour, to observe things relevant to their lessons. So the domain of social regard for learning focuses on the ideal that teachers serve as positive and powerful role models of the values of the pursuit of learning and of the effort to learn and that the teacher's actions, statements, and different types of social interactions with students exemplify this ideal. So, for example, this is situational. You as a teacher is being responsible in everything that you do. So your students will learn and copy you as a responsible individual. What they see and what you taught inside the classroom is the behavior and the attitude they can apply in the society or on the outside of the classroom. So in order for them to become a good citizens of the country, it should be starts with you in the classroom because you taught them on how to behave or how to act properly in the society. So the strand 1.1 acts as a positive role model for students. Performance indicators are: number 1, implement school policies and procedures. Number 2, demonstrates punctuality. Number 3, maintains appropriate appearance. Number 4, is careful about the effect of one's behaviors on students. Number 5, show respects for other persons and their ideas. So with this, you as a teacher, you should be a role model for your students. Students, especially younger children, often learn by imitations. So as a teacher, be aware of your own assumptions about something that can ruin their behavior. So you as a teacher, be a responsible one so that your students will be responsible also. So let's proceed for the domain 2, the learning environment. So the learning environment should be conducive to learning. Well-ventilated classrooms are must to make teaching, learning process effective, efficient, and excellent. So with this, the domain of learning environment focuses on the importance of providing a social and physical environment within all the students, regardless of their individual differences in learning, can engage the different learning activities and work towards attaining high standards of learning. Okay, so for example, this is situational also. Me as a teacher, when creating the learning environment for my classroom, I will lead my class by example to create a positive, engaging classroom by showing respect, encouragement, and empathy to my students. As we build our community, we will also build our love of learning, and I will encourage them to strive hard for them to become a successful one in the future. So the strand 2.1 creates an environment that promotes fairness. The performance indicators are: number 1, maintains a learning environment of courtesy and respect for different learners. Number 2, provides gender fair opportunities for learning. Number 3, recognizes that every learner has strengths. So with this, promoting fairness in the classroom not only gives the teacher respect, but also gives the students a sense of safeness and trust within the classroom. Creating an environment that revolves around fairness, trust, and respect will be beneficial to all of the children in the class. So the strand 2.2 makes the physical environment safe and conducive to learning. Performance indicator is: arranges challenging activities given the physical environment. So let's proceed with the strand 2.3. Communicates higher learning expectations to each learner. So the performance indicators are: number 1, uses individual and cooperative learning activities to improve capacities of learners for higher learning. Number 2, encourages learners to ask questions. Number 3, provides learners with a variety of learning experiences. Number 4, provides varied enrichment activities to nurture the desire for further learning. Number 5, communicates and maintains high standards of learning performance. So, with this, we should be communicate clear expectations or be specific in what you expect students to know and be able to do. So create an environment in which there is genuine respect for students and a belief in their capability. Encourage students to meet expectations for a particular task. So let's proceed with the domain 3, the diversity of learners. Varied learning activities must be taught to the learners in order to develop in them a well-rounded personality. All fields of endeavor are introduced to them so that they can become experts not only in their forte or fields of specialization but in other fields as well. So, the domain of diversity of learners emphasizes the ideal that teachers can facilitate the learning process in diverse types of learners by first recognizing and respecting individual differences, then using knowledge about students' differences to design diverse sets of learning activities to ensure that all students can attain appropriate learning goals. So, for example, this is situational. Inside the classroom, there are different religions, different cultures, and many more differences. Part of an educator's job is to help students understand the impact of each other of their lives on one another. So by encouraging and celebrating diversity in our classrooms, we can empower students to feel safe, build healthy relationships, and make meaningful impact on others. So let's have strand 3.1. Is familiar with learners' background knowledge and experiences. So the performance indicators are: number 1, obtains information on the learning styles, multiple intelligences, and needs of learners. Number 2, designs or selects learning experiences suited to different kinds of learners. Number 3, establishes goals that define appropriate expectations for all learners. Number 4, paces lessons appropriate to needs and or difficulties of learners. Number 5, initiates other learning approaches for learners whose needs have not been met by usual approaches. So with the strand 3.1, you will help your students, whatever their capabilities, learning styles, cultural heritage, and other differences. You will help them to become experts not only in their fields specialization but in other fields as well. So the strand 3.2 demonstrates concern for holistic development of learners. The performance indicators are: number 1, recognizes multicultural background for learners when providing learning opportunities. Number 2, adapts strategies to address needs of different abled students. Number 3, makes appropriate adjustments for learners of different socioeconomic background. So with this, we should recognize our students' background so that we can easily adjust based on their capacities and capabilities on which area they are having difficulties so that we can teach them slowly but surely. Okay, so let's proceed with the domain 4, the curriculum. The curriculum must be relevant, realistic, and responsive to the needs of the society. So, The domain of curriculum refers to all elements of the teaching-learning process that work in convergence to help students attain high standards of learning and understanding of the curricular goals and objectives. So, for example, an individual's teacher's curriculum, for example, would be the specific learning standards, lessons, assignments, and materials used to organize and teach particular course. So that is the example of curriculum. So let's proceed with the strand 4.1. 4.1 demonstrates mastery of the subject. So the performance indicators are: number 1, delivers accurate and updated content knowledge using appropriate methodologies, approaches, and strategies. Number 2, integrates language, literacy, and quantitative skill development and values in his or her subject area. So number 3, explain learning goals, instructional procedures, and content clearly and accurately to students. So number 4, links the current content with past and future lessons. So with this, mastery of the subject matter by the student teacher means that they can simplify the topic into main points that can easily be understood by the learners. So let's proceed with the strand 4.2. Communicates clear learning goals for the lessons that are appropriate for learners. So the performance indicators are: number 1, sets appropriate learning goals. Number 2, understand the learning goals. So we should set and understand the learning goals in order for us to know after our discussions if we reach our goals. If our teaching strategies are effective, we can say that it is effective when we reach our attaining goals. So let's proceed to strand 4.3. Makes good use of allotted instructional time. The performance indicators are: number 1, establishes routines and procedures to maximize instructional time. Number 2, plans lessons to fit within available instructional time. So with this, time management is a very important skill to have. Teacher can use this in the classroom to optimize learning opportunities for students. We should prepare, plan the lesson that will fit to the learner's capacities. So the strand 4.4 selects teaching methods, learning activities, and instructional materials or resources appropriate to learners and aligned to the objectives of the lesson. So the performance indicators are: number 1, translate learning competencies to instructional objectives. Number 2, selects, prepares, and utilizes instructional materials appropriate to the learners and to the learning goals. Number 3, provides activities and uses materials which fits to the learner's learning styles, goals, and culture. Number 4, use a variety of teaching approaches and techniques appropriate to the subject matter and the learners. Number 5, utilizes information derived from assessment to improve teaching and learning. Number 6, provides activities and uses materials which involves the students to meaningful learning. So, with the strand 4.4, we should use teaching learning activities and learning resources efficiently to challenge students to meet high levels of mastery. We should give lessons to the students that are aligned to the objectives of the lessons. So the strand 4.5, teacher recognizes general learning processes as well as unique processes of individual learners. So the performance indicator is: design and utilizes teaching method that take into account the learning process. So you should design and utilize teaching method that can be effective to the learning processes of the students. So the strand 4.6, teacher promotes purposive study. So the performance indicator is cultivates good study habits through appropriate activities and projects. So prepare some good study habit like finding a good studying spot to concentrate in your studies. So strand 4.7, teacher demonstrates skills in the use of information and communication technology in teaching and learning. So the performance indicator is utilizes information and communication technology to enhance teaching and learning. So prepare or use some technology tool that can make your lessons be interesting. So let's proceed with the domain 5, the planning, assessment, and reporting. Learners are given both formative and summative evaluation of their achievements to determine how much they learned of their learning tasks. Parents must be informed about the scholastic achievements of their children, even if they get high or low grades. High grades learners give incentive to parents, but slow learners must be guided and assisted closely by parents to help them on their learning tasks. So the domain 5 refers to aligned use of assessment and planning activities to ensure that the teaching learning activities are maximally appropriate to the students' current knowledge and learning levels. In particular, the domain focuses on the use of assessment data to plan well as the integration of formative assessment procedures in the plan and implementation of teaching learning activities. So for example, this is situational. Maria got high grades while Hannah get low grades. The teacher informed their parents on the grades they had. Both parents came to school. Maria's parents were so happy. Meanwhile, Hannah's parents are worried because she got lower grades. When they got home, Hannah's parents realized that they should help guide and assist their daughter on their learning tasks. So the strand 5.1 communicates promptly and clearly to learners, parents, and superiors about the progress of learners. Performance indicators are: number 1, shows proof of instructional planning. Number 2, implements instruction as planned. Number 3, demonstrate ability to cope with varied teaching. So, with this, you as a teacher, you should provide your stakeholders, learners, parents, and superiors, timely and accurate information about your student learning progress. You should inform them on the about your student learning progress. So 5.2, develops and uses a variety of appropriate assessment strategies to monitor and evaluate learning. Performance indicators are: number 1, prepares formative and summative e-tests in line with the curriculum. Number 2, employs non-traditional assessment techniques. Number 3, interprets and uses assessment results to improve teaching and learning. Number 4, identifies teaching learning difficulties and possible causes and takes appropriate action to address them. Number 5, uses tools for assessing authentic learning. So we should assess our students' learning and knowledge using appropriate educational assessment procedures, and use the information from these assessment procedures in planning our teaching learning activities for the students. So let's proceed with the strand 5.3. Monitors regularly and provides feedback on learners' understanding of content. So the performance indicators are: number 1, provides timely and accurate feedback to learners to encourage them to reflect on and monitor their own learning growth. Number 2, keeps accurate records of grades, performance, levels of learners. Number 3, conduct regular meetings with learners and parents to report learners' progress. Number 4, involves parents to participate in school activities that promotes learning. So with the strand 5.3, we should provide regular feedback to each student about their level of learning. So we are now at the domain 6, the community linkages. Extension activities to different barangays where school is situated must be disseminated to the people in the community in order that they can also avail of that technology. For instance, literacy class, family planning and entrepreneurship, milkish deboning and utilize and commercialize milkish bone into fish value products as their means of livelihood projects. So, with the domain 6, with the domain of community linkages, focuses on the ideal that school activities are meaningfully linked to the experiences and aspirations of the students in their homes and communities. Thus, the domain focuses on teachers' efforts directed at strengthening the links between school and community services, particularly as these links help the attainment of curricular objectives. So, for example, this is situational. The school conducted an outside school activities to help students gain some experiences wherein they can help the community and also can help themselves to value experiences as their means of livelihood projects so they can socialize within the community. So let's have the strand 6.1 establishes learning environments that respond to the aspirations of the community. So the performance indicators are: number 1, involves community and sharing accountability for the learner's achievement. Number 2, uses community resources to supporting learning. Number 3, uses the community as a laboratory for learning. Number 4, participates in community activities that promote learning. Number 5, uses community networks to publicize school events and achievements. Number 6, encourages students to apply classroom learning to the community. So with the strand 6.1, the goals and characteristics of the teaching learning activities that are implemented should be relevant to the experiences, values, and aspirations in the students' communities. So let us have the last domain. Domain 7, personal growth and professional development. Teachers must grow professionally by acquiring a PhD degree and attend trainings and seminars in order to keep track with the different trends and techniques in teaching. So the domain of personal growth and professional development emphasizes the ideal that teachers value having a high personal regard, concern for professional development and continuous improvement as teachers. So for example, you as a teacher must continue your basis. You have to maintain a level of energy that many would find challenging. Teachers also need to undergo different seminars for them to learn different kinds of techniques in teaching. So let's proceed to the strand 7.1. Takes pride in the nobility of teaching as a profession. So number 1, maintain structure and behavior that upholds the dignity of teaching. Number 2, allocates time for personal and professional developments through participation in educational seminars and workshops. reading educational materials regularly and engaging in educational research. Number 3, manifest personal qualities such as enthusiasm, flexibility, and caring. Number 4, articulates and demonstrates one's personality, philosophy of teaching. So the strand 7.1 is that your action and statements indicate a high regard for the teaching profession and for your continuous development as a professional teacher. So the strand 7.2 builds professional links with colleagues to enrich teaching practices. So the performance indicators are: number 1, keeps abreast with recent developments in education. Number 2, links with other institutions, organizations for sharing best practices. So we should try to learn from other colleagues in the teaching profession to improve our teaching practices. So let's proceed with the last strand. The strand 7.3 reflects on the extent of the attainment of learning goals. The performance indicators are: number 1, reflects on the quality of his or her own teaching. Number 2, improves teaching performance based on feedback from students, peers, and superiors and cooperating teachers. Number 3, accepts professional accountability to learners' achievement and performance. Number 4, uses self-evaluation to recognize and enhance one's strength and correct one's weaknesses. So we should be aware of the extent to which our practice as a teacher influences our students to attain of the learning goals.